Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, everybody. I haven't seen us pop up on the thing yet. I'm waiting for that.
You were always waiting.
There we go. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Outsider Circle podcast. I'm your host, Leo.
And I'm your other host, Vin. And today we're joined again by our, now what we were going to call going forward, our producer.
Yes.
Brian on the keyboard.
Say hello, Brian.
Always a pleasure, guys.
Yes. Now he got a fancy new title.
Yeah. We figured we're going to be official about this.
And since we're talking about Kojima today, he's also wearing a matching shirt, which you guys unfortunately can't see.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yes, but we are all wearing some type of Metal Gear paraphernalia today, merchandise, or whatever the more appropriate word might be.
What we have here is a classic Japanese text box from Metal Gear Solid 1?
No, Metal Gear 1.
Metal Gear. Wow, throwbacks.
Yeah.
We have a Diamond Dogs
sweater.
So it's all works doubly as a David Bowie sweater.
Yes,
so.
I do. I love this sweater. These are all my clothes,
of course,
that everybody's wearing. And this one I love particularly because it just looks like some athletic sweater. Like nobody's gonna really question it too much.
I played for the Diamond Dogs back in high school.
Yeah, exactly. Who knows? And then Brian is wearing my tiger stripe fatigue shirt that is very durable, and I spent a lot of money on.
Yeah,
it's
complete with the
brand.
Yeah,
Metal Gear patches
that can be popped off. Yeah. I don't know where they are right now. I took them off like immediately. But today we're going to be discussing one of my favorite people in the world. Honestly, I have very few idols in this world, and this man is one of them. Hideo Kojima,
legendary game maker, huge fan of film, cinema, television, and Western culture in general.
Yes, I would consider him a Westaboo.
Yeah,
if there is such a term. Because that Japanese man, he loves Western culture.
He absolutely does. Yes. And I think that he's incorporated massive elements of Western culture into pretty much every one of his productions.
Yes, exactly. And the production that he's most known for is the Metal Gear Solid franchise. A franchise which I am a very huge fan of.
And I have never played.
Yeah, and it's very unfortunate. Vin has spent many years hearing me yell about Metal Gear through various points in my life.
I've often pretended to have played it to participate in conversations with other people who are fans and have played it, because I just know enough about it through osmosis now from Leo that I can participate in conversations about Metal Gear Solid without ever having actually played the game myself.
Yeah,
I want to remedy that at one point. Stream it one day.
Yeah, I love to watch literally anybody play Metal Gear Solid. It is it's great.
Yeah, so tune in for that some point.
I had a friend recently that was just going through the first game on his laptop, and I was watching him play that. He streamed it for other friends to watch. It was great. Yeah,
so there you go. It's a shared experience these days.
It's fantastic.
No such thing as a single player game anymore.
Yeah, exactly. But also, before we continue forward, I'd like to now that we have our new producer title for Brian over here, we also got a new table. We're slightly higher up.
Slightly
if you haven't
more
noticed.
Elevated.
Yeah, so that's fun.
We've also tried a new setup with the way that we put the mics up.
Yes.
We think that this is a much more functional way to do it. Thanks, Susan.
Yes.
It's her idea.
Yes.
Always looking out.
Yeah, she gave us the idea, and it looks great on camera, honestly.
Yeah. Even if y'all don't like it, we think we're dope. So, that's what really matters at the end of the day.
But yeah, so let's get into who this man is. So Hideo Kojima is a Japanese game developer who was... I don't know where he was born, but he was born
in Tokyo.
Yeah,
he was born in the Satagawa district of Tokyo, I think. I might be mispronouncing that.
Yeah, to a relatively poor family.
Yeah. And he was they worked a lot, both of his parents, right?
Yeah, they did work a lot.
And so he was effectively like raised by the television. I think is what the common story goes.
Yeah, he says that he's raised by the television. He would be considered. He would at some points in his life he would be considered what we call in the West, or like at least in America, like a latchkey kid.
Right. Yeah.
Like when he was
himself home.
Yeah, when he was in elementary school, his parents had to put a key around his neck on like a little necklace, so that he
latchkey.
Yeah, exactly. And so he can enter and leave his house when nobody was around. But
you'd think that he could just put it in his pocket.
Yeah, like kids lose things. I remember I lost things all the time.
I still lose things.
I put my own keys on my neck to make sure I didn't lose them for a couple of years. Yeah. I now have my keys chained to myself, so I still don't lose them. But you know,
that's fair.
It's a little bit more effective.
Yeah,
a little less embarrassing.
Is it though?
I don't know. I mean, my chain looks kind of cool.
I wonder if Kojima still has like a chain for his keys.
I would believe
so. Virtue of his raising.
Kojima is a very cool looking man. Brian, if you could do us a favor and get some fantastic photos of Mr. Kojima.
Can we get some early Kojima in there? Because also the man is ageless. That's another important thing to know. Just like most Japanese men or people just seem to be in general.
I believe he's around 50 to 55, and he looks pretty good.
Pretty much the same as he did when he was 35.
Yeah, really.
More beard.
But yeah, so he grew up, or he was born in this district in Japan. His family then moved around for a lot of his life because since they were poor, they basically kind of followed whatever good work they could find.
Right.
And because of that, he was always the new kid in school, and he was not only was he always the new kid, so he didn't really have any friends to start off with. He was weird on top of that, so it was difficult for him to make friends.
Look at that handsome man.
Yeah, Brian, switch over that camera so we can show the audience this wonderful man's face.
It's beautiful.
Yes. So
he recently held a sword.
Yeah.
He looked like the definition of sex appeal.
I finally saw the trailer for that. It is interesting. We'll get into it.
It's like a TV show.
Yeah, it's an Amazon series. Yeah. But directed by Nicholas Wine Refn.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Interesting. But
only God forgive.
Yeah. And Drive, which Kojima adores the movie Drive.
Maybe that's what maybe reach out to him.
I can almost guarantee that's how it happens.
This is definitely a bit of a spoiler, but Kojima has now reached the level of his life where he can just directly reach out to celebrities that he enjoys.
Yeah, he is so famous that Kanye West, in his last visit to America, or his last kind of like visit that he said he was coming to America, Kanye West was like on Twitter, like, who can get me in contact with Hideo Kojima? Like, somebody. I need to see Hideo Kojima while he's here.
That is
make it happen.
It's so incredible. And this is literally just all off the back of his game making.
Yeah, and so let's get back to who he is. So he was poor. He was alone a lot as a child. So he used to watch TV, and he would just leave the TV on in the background and just like have noise always. And he always had these kind of stories that he would make in his head of just like various things, just like different ways he interpreted the world. And he kind of eventually this kind of morphed into a creative outlet in kind of filmmaking as he got older in his teens. But at this time, this was in 70s, 80s, maybe. I forget when. But
around that amalgam.
Yeah, but either way, film was a bit of a middle to upper class commodity at this point. So it was a little difficult for him to, maintain making films at the level of poverty he was at. So eventually his father died when he was young, when he was 13, and that had a huge impact on him, not only for the fact that one of his parents was out of his life, but then the rest of his family had to pick up the slack then. So then he became even lonelier because everybody who was in the household was out, trying to make ends meet. Eventually, he continues making his little movies on the side, and he tries to think that he wants to be some type of artist or director or anything. He is constantly derided for this by his family members, specifically his mother. Everybody tells him, you shouldn't do that. We have an artist relative, and he's like poor all the time. You should go to college and get a degree that you can make some money. So he eventually gave in and went to college to get an economics degree, which
went to college for economics.
Yeah, for economics.
I thought he went for like programming or design.
No, he didn't actually, because that's actually a very important aspect of his kind of career. So he went to college for economics. He went through the college, but he spent most of his like free time when he should have been studying playing video games and watching films like usual. Right. And he became enraptured with video games as a genre, as a new medium. Right. Very specifically, he loved the Super Mario Brothers game, the original Super Mario's by Shigeru Miyamoto, and he thought it was so phenomenal how this game can like tell a story in the way it told the story, and it just kind of got his mind racing.
Right. Okay.
So eventually he got out of college, and he decided.
So this would have been what, the mid '80s?
I believe so. This was I believe in the big boom of Japan.
Right. And like when Nintendo like started. Putting video games out.
Yeah, exactly. It was definitely after '85. That's when Super Mario Brothers came out.
Right.
So he eventually finds work at Konami, and all while this is happening, everybody along the way is telling him,
See, I thought that he had built one of his early games before he started working for Konami.
No, he never made a game before Konami.
Really?
Yeah.
Didn't he make that weird cop game? Was that at Konami?
That was at Konami.
Damn.
He even calls it like he considers it like an independent film of his,
while being sponsored by a big budget company like Konami.
Yeah, because he calls Metal Gears like his blockbuster games.
Right.
But
okay.
the two games, Police Knot and Snatcher, which are kind of like point and click adventure games.
That's it. Police Knot. Yeah.
Yeah. He considered them like he considers them like independent venture.
Interesting.
Because he spent a lot more time, and he was like, it was a simpler program than he was able to do. But he eventually got work at Konami. Everybody who was around him told him that, that's such a bad idea. Why are you going to go make video games? Nobody cares about video games. You're not going to make any money. You're so smart. Why don't you go somewhere else where you can, more properly have your skills utilized,
Right.
And he constantly gets this. And that's probably a big part because of Japanese culture, and that's just kind of the way it is. You should do what's best for yourself and your family,
and like do your best to be a contributing member of society, participate in the economy, get a good job, get a stable job, earn a salary,
exactly,
support a family,
as opposed to being an artist.
Japanese products.
Being an artist who kind of like just goes about and does whatever and doesn't really make money and kind of ends up struggling. So eventually he's working at Konami. While at Konami, he's kind of assigned some games, assigned some work, and since this is the early days in the video game section of Konami and the early games with video games entirely, most of the people who work there, they kind of did a little bit of everything.
Right.
So he was initially hired on as a planner. That was his job title, and he was basically supposed to plan games together. But not only was he not great at that, but he couldn't do any of the other aspects. So he could plan game levels, maybe. He could maybe do it on paper, but he couldn't program. He couldn't really make art. He didn't really understand like coding. He wasn't prepared in any of that.
Damn.
So he was kind of really like, up shit's creek relative to all the other people. So he kept on failing to have projects finish, and the Metal Gear game that he was given was kind of like almost like a last straw for him. They were just like, hey, Kojima, here's this war game. You can't even mess this up. Like, it's war. Like, war video games, like the easiest thing. You make a guy, he shoots the thing, and then it's a video game.
Right.
And so Kojima, he got the game. He got assigned Metal Gear, or whatever this project was. He later called it Metal Gear. And he thought to himself, well, I don't like the idea of having just like a shooty action game that kind of like everybody else is. Immediately what you can comes to your mind at this point would be like a Contra. Right, very simple,
just
you
like
move forward,
run and gun, killing bad guys.
Exactly. And that, that's probably what Konami was expecting, but he had lofty ideas.
He decided he wanted to sneak around corners.
Yeah, exactly. So he initially, what had come to his mind about this, since he is such a huge film buff, I remember I think for a certain amount of time in his life he watched a movie a day, like one movie per day for
like a new film every day.
Yeah. And he watched a lot of things, and what the basis for kind of the conceptual idea for Metal Gear is The Great Escape. I don't know if you ever seen the movie The Great Escape. It's an old I think it's 40s or 50s or 60s movie.
I've heard the name before, people have talked about it, but I haven't seen it.
It's a prisoner of war movie where all these prisoners were taken by the Nazis, and they're trying to figure out how to escape.
Right. Okay.
So they're in this kind of like POW officers POW camp, and they're basically they're trying to get out of there. And so they have to do a lot of sneaking, and it's a lot of trying to trick people and trying to not have things appear the way that they are, so that your plans can go through without the Nazis figuring out. Very sneaky. The whole movie was them trying to be sneaky because they're fucking prisoners of war. So he kind of attached to this idea. He was just like, well, if they can be sneaky in the movie and still be compelling, well, let's see if we can be sneaky in a game and make that compelling.
And this was in 1987.
Yes. So this is like very
This was way ahead of the curve in terms of how people are approaching video games. There was no concept of stealth gaming, really.
There was almost no record of a stealth-based game before this.
I don't think there was one. Not that I can think of, certainly.
Yeah. And which kind of just it gets to the whole theming of Kojima's career, which Kojima for his whole career has been ahead of the curve.
But I feel like that game is such a microcosm of the rest of his career with Konami too, because he put out Metal Gear, and then after a couple years, Konami put out a rework of it that had like nothing to do with Kojima, and it like fucked up all his levels. They like changed the game up.
Yeah, so there were two ways they messed it up. One was they made an NES port for the game,
but that was pretty early, I think, because they originally they made it for, was it the MSX?
The MSX, the
family computer system. Yeah,
which
and
was
then
like,
they made it for the Famicom after that, which was like the more consumer friendly product.
And the reason that a lot of Americans have not a good view of the first Metal Gear is because the first Metal Gear, when ported to the NES, was kind of shitty. Like they kind of messed up some levels and like really messed up a lot of the gameplay. Yeah. So it's like it's like Metal Gear in its bare bones, but like they messed up a lot in the program. Yeah. And then after that, because even that it was a success.
Konami doesn't know how to let a winner be a winner.
Yeah. So they had commissioned the sequel to it called Snake's Revenge. Kojima didn't even know about it. He hadn't heard about it at all. Right. He only heard about it because he was on the train with a coworker, and they were having a conversation. He was just like, "Oh yeah, I'm working on the sequel to Metal Gear." He's like, "Sequel to Metal Gear? What the hell?
My Metal Gear?
You mean my game?" It's just like, yeah, we're making a sequel. It's called Snake's Revenge. Blah blah blah. So he got a little upset, and he went to his boss, and he was just like, "Hey, what the hell?
Why?
What are you doing?" And then he was just like, he demanded to make a sequel. So then he did make the proper
Metal Gear 2.
Yeah, Metal Gear 2 for the MSX2, I believe, also. Yeah. But that game is definitely the better of the two. And also that game...
Metal Gear 2, you would say?
Yeah, Metal Gear 2 is like so close to a carbon copy of Metal Gear Solid 1 that it's ridiculous. Like really? there are so many sequences that happen in Metal Gear 2 that are...
So is it a reskin or is it a real sequel?
It's like a real sequel, but like imagine a sequel, but it's literally the same game.
Right. They called it a tactical espionage game.
Yes,
and that was it. So it wasn't even like a stealth game.
Yeah, because you got to go around, you got to meet people, you got to destroy things. Sometimes you could fight, sometimes you don't, but ultimately it's meant to be stealthy. But that game was also a critical success. It did not sell as well as the rest of them because the MSX2 was kind of a...
Oh, it was Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake. That was the full title.
Yes.
So that's when we're introduced to Solid Snake as a character?
No.
Is it the same Solid Snake from Metal Gear Solid?
It's the same Solid Snake from Metal Gear Solid and the same Solid Snake from Metal Gear 1. Yeah.
Okay, so it's always Solid Snake.
Yes.
Throughout the whole history.
Yes, and then in this game they have a second big boss. So he really just didn't really care with the storyline at all at this point. Right. And that kind of happens later.
Did he ever really care about the storyline?
He made it work. But basically, the big boss came back. You beat Big Boss. It was a lot better. There was a lot more level detail and a lot more. Diversity in the type of gameplay that you were allowed from the first Metal Gear. Very great game.
Were you a clone yet?
No, it was still too simple at that point.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you only turned to a clone in Metal Gear Solid.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but the game was great. It didn't sell as well because nobody had the console. But it did well enough.
X2.
Yeah. Eventually, PlayStation 1 comes out. PlayStation 1 blows Kojima away.
It like revolutionizes the game too. Like
it really does.
The only competition it had at that level was Nintendo 64. Yeah. And PlayStation was fucking leagues ahead of Nintendo at that point.
And they didn't even have it on 64. PlayStation came out before the N64.
Are you sure?
Yeah, so its immediate competition was first the end of the Super Nintendo life cycle. And then,
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, because I think PlayStation came out in 1992 or 93, and the Super Nintendo came out in 95 or 96. So like there was a little bit of difference. But what PlayStation would really want to try to do is they wanted
it hit US in 95 PlayStation. And then so when did N64 come out?
Yeah, but either way, Kojima saw the capabilities of the PlayStation.
Holy shit, 1996. God damn. Fuck, my brain is backwards.
You gotta get all those numbers right in your head, man.
But I guess that makes... I've always been a PlayStation kid anyway. So I guess that makes sense because I just encountered it earlier to start with. But Jesus, how did Nintendo 64 be worse than a PlayStation when it had a year to catch up?
It arguably wasn't. It's just that Nintendo 64 was a little faster. and had a little bit better graphics. The graphic.
I don't think it had a better graphics though, because the PlayStation graphics, like
the PlayStation graphics are a lot worse, and they knew that. They knew that, and they didn't really care about it. They cared more about the physical objects on the screen.
What do you mean the physical?
Like the amount of polygons,
like the amount of interactivity on it.
Yeah. Like if Brian is looking through some Metal Gear right now, if you want to switch over to that,
right? That's PlayStation graphics.
Yeah, it's a PlayStation.
Look at those fucking polygons; they're great.
Yeah, no, they're not. Look at you could see how big the pixels are on the wall. They're like inches large. Like that, they did not have a lot.
Yeah, but look at Mario 64.
Mario 64 had better detail.
Not really.
In its graphics, it did, but it also didn't have as many objects. That's why some of the graphics were flat facing.
Now let's cut back away before we get copyright claimed.
Yeah,
because Konami hates everything.
Yeah, the Nintendo 64 had they had flat objects that would always face you. That's what they had a lot of.
Oh yeah.
So there were trees like that.
The Banjo-Kazooies and all that.
Yeah, and all the coins. They're like an object in a place, but the 2D polygon is always facing your direction.
Right.
Yeah.
So PlayStation is better for life.
Yeah. So PlayStation came out. Kojima saw this, and he immediately started running through his brain like the possibilities that he can do with this console.
Right.
The possibilities of running in 3D space. And if you saw for that little bit that we did show you,
that was a cinematic.
Yeah. That's one of the big things. Like he was the.
You could do cinematics. Yeah.
Nobody done that before. He was like basically the first person to make these cinematic cutscenes that had camera angles and framing and different type of shot composition.
Yeah, it was a way for him to work his love of film into video games.
Exactly. That's exactly what he did, and it really revolutionized gameplay, PlayStation games entirely.
So I feel like now we should just do a brief sum up of the Metal Gear Solid legacy, because I feel like that's the bulk of what people are going to recognize Kojima for. I certainly know more about that than I do about his biography, even having never played the games. So we like touched on. You talked about Metal Gear 1 and 2. But then Metal Gear Solid is where like he really he finds his footing and or he establishes his legacy. And Metal Gear Solid as a franchise, not even counting the first 2 Metal Gear games, encompasses over 9 titles. Right? I believe.
I think,
or at least 9, because it's Metal Gear Solid's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2 5s.
Yeah. 2 5s.
Well, those two, they're 2 independently released video games.
Yeah. 2 5s.
They're both called 5.
And then Peace Walker.
And then there's 2 PSP games.
Yeah. Well, there's 3 PSP games technically. There's the Metal Gear Portable Ops, which is like kind of canon. Yeah, it wasn't directed by him.
That was the only Metal Gear game I played because someone told me that the PSP Metal Gear was really good, and I had a PSP at the time, and I accidentally got that one.
Yeah, because Peace Walker,
Peace Walker was the good one. I did not get that. I accidentally got Portable Ops, and I suffered for it.
I got it on the Metal Gear HD collection. That was the first time I played Peace Walker, and like relative to it being on a portable console, I actually really liked it. Like the way that his game was designed around kind of small missions,
right?
And that, which is kind of like this big theme that is in Kojima's game, that Kojima understands video games. He understands it at its core essence, what it means to have an interactive medium.
Right, but just on the face of that, that's 8 games, and then Revengeance is 9.
Yeah, and those
all had Kojima involved in some capacity. Yeah. So, and then now there's also another Metal Gear, which is like Metal Gear Zombies, which doesn't have anything to do with Kojima.
No.
And there's a Pachinko that has nothing to do with Kojima. But Kojima's Metal Gear Solid had 9 games in it.
Yeah.
Well, 11 games counting the 2 first Metal Gears.
Yeah. And
that's a prolific career in and of itself.
Yeah, and
Kojima could have retired after his falling out with Konami.
Yeah, he could have. Like that, I was watching an interview with him earlier today from the BBC, and they were like, "Hey, so like why didn't you retire? Like you could retire and rest on your laurels and
forever,
and
never go down as an icon just on that."
Yeah, and he was just like, he's driven to make games. He is driven to create always, and he's famously said, "I'll probably be making something on my deathbed." Like.
I respect the hell out of that.
This man will not stop making. He is whatever.
He might not see it, but he is an artist. Like he is an auteur. He is a genre defining artist.
He's like the video game auteur. Like when you think of video game auteur, usually your first idea in your head is Hideo Kojima.
Honestly.
Because when you play a Hideo Kojima game, there is such a clear vision.
Miyazaki is getting there too now.
Oh yes, he's doing pretty well.
Yeah,
I don't think he's as auteur enough. Like I don't
know. I think that I need to play Sekiro and find out, because Sekiro kind of changed up the formula from what I've heard. So I want to see what that's like.
Yeah, but from what I've seen, like playing the FromSoft games as the Soul series has gone forward, it doesn't feel to me like there's a lot of like an auteurship in it.
Maybe not like Kojima's.
Yeah, because like...
But I would say that he stands out more... Like, From Software and Hidetaka Miyazaki stand as two different institutions almost. Like, obviously he is From Software and like they're both the same thing. But when people think about Metal Gear Solid, they're thinking about Hideo Kojima, not Konami, right?
Yeah.
They're like... It is a Konami game, but they're thinking about the guy who made it more than they're thinking about the studio. Whereas, like... Most Western releases, you think about like the studios that make them, so you're never really pinning it down to one guy.
I would say that,
but I think that Hidetaka Miyazaki is one of those one guys that you can kind of point at.
I would say,
I hope I'm saying that name correctly.
Yeah, I would say that the two that I think of like are more emblematic of it are. I believe the guy's name is Yoko Taro, the guy who did Nier.
Yes! Oh, yeah! I can talk about Yoko Taro forever.
Yeah, he is a fucking weirdo.
But he's also an auteur. He has to draw some direct inspiration from Hideo Kojima.
I do not doubt it.
It's all Japanese game makers.
Yeah.
And American game makers, step up. Stop making Fortnites.
Yeah.
Start making fucking Metal Gears and Nier Automatas.
Yeah. And then the next one I would say would be...
who made...
Hideaki Kiyama, the guy who made Beautiful 101 and Wonderful 101 and Iron Hand or Iron Fist or God Hand. No, there we go. That's the one. God Hand. He's basically the guy responsible for Platinum. So he.
Well, that's also Nier Automata.
Yeah, but
also in Bayonetta and I think the new Devil May Cry, right? Brian?
Is the new Devil May Cry?
Brian, what's the new Devil May Cry? Is it? It's not. It's Capcom.
Yeah. But it doesn't matter. That name is more attached to the studio than it is to the
also, the guy
publisher.
who makes Yakuza is another one of those big ones.
Yeah, but basically, so
I guess Japanese games just really do fucking massively well.
I think
they show an auteurship that we don't see as much in the West. I think it's like the same way. Like I don't know who I could point to at Rockstar, who I would like call genre defining for the Grand Theft Auto games. Yeah, there has to be a mastermind somewhere along the line.
I don't think that there is.
There has to be at least one or two guys who. No, but it didn't start that big. It started as a top-down game, the same as Metal Gear.
I don't know.
No, but it did. Like you can definitely trace it back to individuals. Like if somebody had the idea.
Yeah,
first,
but there's a difference
not the same way that like Kojima rises to level of artisanship over.
Yeah, because there's certain there's something within the game that you can tell it has the character traits of this person's work.
Right.
And Kojima, every game that he's made, every single game has
fucking Team Ico too.
Yeah.
They're also Japanese.
They have it's like his whatever the ideas he wants to convey are there. And
I think all my favorite games are Japanese.
That might be it. I think you might just be a little bit too much of a weeb now.
But that's not even on purpose. Like the anime stuff is on purpose. But like this is by accident. My favorite games certainly the last few years have all been Japanese made, I think.
Well, it also helps that the West hasn't been really making
who made Horizon?
That was a Sony second
Canadian
party
game, I think.
But that was that had a lot. That was a Sony project, wasn't it?
Oh fuck! You know who we can point to? I forgot his name. But God of War Man. There was a guy to point at for God.
There's
of War.
One guy to point at.
There's like a guy to point at for like the vast majority of it, and it's the same guy who just did Dad of War. So yeah, and like it's him being like, we got to evolve and move on. So I think there is a little bit of Western auteurship still at work, thankfully. Yeah, David Jaffe.
And where's studios that from? Is it just Sony? Is it just Sony? Whatever part of
there
America?
was something else involved.
All right. Well,
is that for Dad of War or is that for the whole series?
I think it's for the whole series. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's all on PlayStation. But either way,
does that describe it as a fucking hack and slash game? That's bullshit. It's a character action game.
The first 3 were hack and slash games, and they were beautiful.
Yes, they were. But they were also still character action games.
Yeah, they can be both.
That's true. This is a character action game.
Yes. But let's move forward from the authorship. So,
Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah, so Metal Gear Solid, it was super ahead of its time, and not only was it ahead of its time in like its core functionality of as a game, like it was gameplay that hadn't been seen before, utilization of 3D assets that hadn't been seen before, making
narrative. His narrative.
These cinematic cutscenes that had different framing and it had like
distinguishable characters.
Yeah,
like there no two characters in the series look alike.
Yeah,
well, unless they're supposed to look alike.
And even then, like there's character development, plot, and the story points, and like highs and lows that like
and different
were compelling
kinds of game in the game almost.
Yeah.
Like there's like the way that, like, for instance, the codec. The way that the game display changes when you're in codec conversations versus how you operate and move around, like the detail in the animation is just the codec faces, so you're getting that real characterization for the character.
Yeah, because you really get to like look at their face.
Yeah,
like
it's the model is pixely.
Yeah,
but the green animated face or the picture face in the codec is like it's a guy.
Yeah, it's like a higher detail. It's like, oh, I can see
like that's a human
face.
Being. Yeah,
face features.
And there were like, couldn't you like? Weren't there options? Like, couldn't you like not save people? Wasn't there like some girl that you could like let die in that game?
Yeah, one of the girls you could like not die, and it only really changed the ending very slightly.
But it doesn't matter. It's like there's a tangible this or that. Like, it's not like in most other games of that point. If you fail to accomplish that goal, you lose. Like it's game over.
Yes,
but in this one, it's like, okay, you just didn't save her.
Which gets to the point of that I want to bring up for my shirt. So, Metal Gear Solid and the Metal Gear franchise is one of the things it's most like notorious for is its fourth wall breaking things. So particularly in Metal Gear Solid 1, there was a boss that's very popularly known as Psycho Mantis.
Very popular. Isn't that the name of the boss?
I mean, well, he is popular, and that's his name. I don't know.
But you say popularly known as.
All right, so it's like the known boss that is popular. I don't know. Whatever.
The popular boss, Psycho Mantis.
Thank you, my friend. This is why you have an English degree.
Yeah.
This is why I do the cameras. But as I was saying, so in the game, when you played against him, the way to defeat him, first of all, you had to talk to the colonel, who was like the guy giving you your mission, and he has to tell you, oh, you have to switch your controller port. So you had to manually.
I think Brian is pulling up a little bit of Psycho Mantis.
Yeah. So Brian,
you should probably only play about 13 seconds.
No, it's fine. This is a video game. It's movies and TV shows that we got to worry about.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So, but Brian,
this is fair use.
Yeah. So as you can see, like this came out in 1996 on the PlayStation. Like, look at the framing here. It's just very basic at this moment, but he's talking to you and telling you what other Konami games you have in your memory card as he reads your memory card.
Is it just Konami? I thought it was all games.
No, it's just Konami games.
All
and
games
then,
that it can like read the data for.
Yeah, and then in did he break anything?
No.
But as I was saying, but he reads your memory card. The colonel tells you that to fight him, he can read your every move. So you have to take your controller out of your port 1 and put it into port 2.
That took people real life months to figure out.
Yeah. Well, all you had to do
this was before like a lot of the internet.
Yeah. But that was like the first kind of freaky. That's the main freaky fourth wall breaking moment. The next moment, which is with the girl that you could save, when you get captured at one point.
Meredith.
Yeah, Meryl.
Fuck.
When you get captured, you get taken to like this torture chamber.
Oh, don't you get like electrocuted and you have to like press X to not die?
Yeah, exactly.
I think fucking Hideo Kojima might be also the first person to press X to not die.
Maybe, I don't know, but
like I wouldn't call it like a quick time event. Because it's not really.
Yeah. It was like an endurance event. But it is still
press X to not die.
Yeah, like press X to not die a lot. Damn,
Kojima, I should play your games.
Yeah, and on top of that, when you got to that scene, right before the press X to not die part happens, Ocelot, who's one of the villains in the game.
The giant weeaboo.
Yeah,
Is he one of the villains, though?
Or
is he just one of the triple crossers?
He's
quadruple
both.
Crossers.
He's in every game. He's the coolest guy in every game.
But he betrays you constantly.
Yeah. But he says, hey, also you can't save him.
Press X to not die.
Yeah. Like or
press A, I guess?
Yeah, well, this is the GameCube version.
Okay.
But you can't save the game. Like, he's not like, oh, and there's no save points anymore. So if you die, like, it's game over. You have to go to the last
point on.
Yeah, well, you have to go to whatever last save point you have, but you can't like automatically load it. You have to go back to the main menu screen and load from that.
That sucks. But that's real consequences.
But he also tells you this as the character in the game. He says there's no save points. And like,
so he's breaking that while he's talking to you, the player.
Yeah, while he's talking to Snake as Ocelot, the character, and then he's just like, "All right, torture time," and then you can either save Meryl or not save Meryl. You can give up in that point too, and you will stay alive, but Meryl will die. But
Otacon is the weeaboo.
Yeah,
not Ocelot.
But that game was very good. And it did super well, and it was like a blockbuster, and it literally rose Hideo Kojima into like a well-respected person in his industry to a superstar.
Yeah,
quite literally.
And he followed, and then that was this was like the biggest game ever up to that point. And everybody, it lit the fucking community on fire. Everybody loved this game. I remember my friends constantly talking about Metal Gear Solid. Maybe that's why I never played it, because I just like there was so much hype forever. Because then, when Sons of Liberty, I remember reading the IGN, or not, the Game Informer article previewing like Sons of Liberty, and like they had played, I guess, whatever demo Kojima had given people that had like the first hour.
Yeah,
of the game.
He had the first hour in the Zone of the Enders game.
Yeah, and so everybody was like, "Oh, it's gonna be great! It's gonna be a great follow up to this." And then Kojima did like something that then will just forever cement him as like if people thought he was a god after Metal Gear Solid 1, he made himself a god with Metal Gear Solid 2. Yeah, because on the height of his amazing fame from Metal Gear Solid 1 with the story of Solid Snake, he risked it to throw it all away. He gave you an hour of Solid Snake at the beginning of Metal Gear Solid 2.
Some of the best gameplay ever.
And then immediately introduced one of the least popular characters in the series to date, Raiden, and made you play the whole game as Raiden.
Yeah, and Raiden, he was a different character. He was like, he was so much less manly. Like, Snake was this kind of like idyllic American, like Western, like literally, spy hero.
Escape from New York.
Yeah, like quite literally. Like, his name is Snake
Plissken.
Because of that.
Yeah.
And then
if you haven't seen Escape from New York, you should do that.
It's pretty good. It's fun.
It's a very good movie. It's classic Americana. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Watch that movie. Watch it when you're drinking.
It's good. It's good when you're drinking.
Yeah. It's good if you love America.
You know the movie's about a New York being an open air prison, right?
That's fine.
And the president getting lost in there.
That's Alcatraz, bro. It's New York Alcatraz. New York is a prison. We're trapped here.
So,
anyway.
Kojima, he plays this switch on you where instead of playing this like idyllic hero character, you're playing this literally a rookie, like quite literally
with long silver hair.
Yeah, if you choose the certain options, it will say this is your first mission. Like,
really?
Yeah.
Wait, what would it say if you choose different options?
If you played the tanker mission, which is the demo mission that was given you before, which is like perfect gameplay, like perfect hour of Metal Gear, it'll say, well, you've done the simulations, this is the real thing now. And if you don't play it, it'd be like, this is your first sneaking mission. Like, there's a difference in the dialogue from the colonel at the beginning of the game, depending on the way you play it.
Yeah, and then that's the whole game.
Yeah, and then he plays this guy, and you're basically playing what is functionally another clone of Metal Gear Solid. So Metal Gear Solid was kind of a gameplay story arc clone of Metal Gear 2, and now Metal Gear Solid 2 is kind of a copycat functionally of Metal Gear Solid 1. It has a lot of very similar story beats, and it's very out there, and it's still compelling. It's still good gameplay, but like, you really just don't like this character because he's so whiny, and he's just like he's a
bitch.
Yeah,
a little bitch.
Yeah, like people. He complains about. Yeah, he complains about not knowing what's going on, and like he doesn't really seem to have any strong ideas on anything. And as the game gets further and further, you find these like weird things, and then the game kind of like breaks upon itself.
All right, now Leo has said that.
Yeah, I said this.
This game was one of the more instrumental games in the way that he formed his
worldview.
Your worldview.
Yeah, so I played
his worldview. You say.
Yeah. So I played this game. I believe it was 2008, 2007, maybe. I was about 16 at the time. I just picked it up at GameStop because it was cheap, and I was just like trying to like pick up gaming as kind of like a real hobby and trying to like really play good games or like play through franchises. And this was Metal Gear Solid 2 was the first Metal Gear Solid game I played. So I didn't really have any expectations like other people might have had. But as it got into it, once the game kind of broke upon itself, it really hit me in a way that I was not expecting. This is probably the most meta game that Kojima ever made.
You think this was the most meta?
Yeah, because there are... How do I put this? So in Metal Gear Solid 2, there's a twist that was just like, oh, Raiden, you're not who we really said you were, and all this mission isn't really...
It came out in 2001.
Yeah. This
So
man
played it in
saw into the
2008,
future.
you think?
Yeah, and it's...
You sure you played it that late?
Yeah. I'm certain. Like, well, maybe not 2000. Maybe like probably 2007,
Probably like 2004.
No.
Really?
I played it late. I was like a teenager.
Because 3 was out by the time you played 2.
I played 3 immediately afterwards.
Okay.
And I got them both for really cheap at GameStop. So.
Damn.
Yeah, but
2008. Actually, fucking 4 was probably coming out in 2008.
It was coming out soon. I don't know. But either way, as I was saying.
Sorry.
So the game pulls a twist on you. It's just like, haha, this is not actually why you're on this mission.
Metal Gear Solid 4 came out in 2008. Sorry. Yeah, it did. Yeah. I fucking knew it.
So this is not why we did the mission. Actually, we're doing it for this reason. And then you're like, oh my god, that sucks. I was being tricked the whole time. And then you play 20 more minutes of gameplay. It's just like, haha, remember that thing that we just told you that we actually flipped on you why we did it? Actually, that was a lie too. Here's what's really happening. And then at this point, your brain's just like, oh shit. And then the game is like talking into your face. Like, and I remember. So this shirt says, Snake, this is boss, turn off the MSX over, which is quite literally the boss calling you up and telling you to turn off your video game console. Like
the MSX?
The MSX. That's why.
So that's from Metal Gear.
That's Metal Gear.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is shit he's been pulling since day one.
Jesus.
But when he hit me on that one, the codec comes up, and one of the characters in the game is just like, "Hey, haven't you been playing this game a little too long? Don't you have anything else to do with your life?" And I sat there for 5 minutes after it said that to me, and I was just like, "Holy fuck!" Like, I feel attacked. Like I feel
personally attacked by this relatable content.
Yeah. Like. You insulted me, and you really hit me hard because I didn't have anything better to do. And then this game kind of it just unfolds, and then Raiden becomes a character that was far more hardcore than the game had led you on for a lot long.
Holy shit!
And then
been 4 years since 50.
Yeah. And then the whole game just kind of like it falls apart, and then it really just unloads this ideas of collective, almost. How do I put it? He basically predicted the way the world was from 2012 to 2018. He predicted that people were going to put too much information into the world, and because of that, there was going to be so much noise versus signal. I don't know if you ever heard of the signal-noise dichotomy.
Yeah.
But there's going to be so much noise out there, and because of that, the Patriots, which is kind of like the villain in this game, are trying to gather that noise and then put out what is the correct thing to be said. And it was just that it kept on saying that people are just gonna start listening to each other and only want to hear the opinions that they want to hear, and then keep themselves in these little echo chambers. And then because of that, everybody's only going to see the worst things and only going to believe what they want to believe. And
well, again, this game came out in 2001.
2001, my guy.
But that was already happening then. We were already echoed. Like 9/11 happened in 2001.
Yeah,
in September of 2001.
Yeah, but we hadn't chose to put ourselves in the echo chamber.
There was still a lot of it happening.
Yeah, but it
not
was
as bad as it is now, sure.
But it was like.
But I guess he saw which way the direction was going.
Yeah, because the way that they saw it was that it was so.
But he's part of the he's a media maker. Like he was inside the system. He was more equipped to talk about it.
But
and predict it than
even then, like
not to discredit his genius, but
even then, like it's such a accurate prediction, which is been a bit of a theme overall in Kojima's game. Like Kojima tends to pick out on the little things in society and then kind of like push them to their extreme, be like, things are going to go this way, and they tend to do that. The only thing I'm waiting on right now is kind of like ID guns. That was from Metal Gear Solid 4. That's probably his last big idea.
ID guns?
Yeah, basically guns that only you can shoot.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And it would be like some kind of either whether it's
that's
like
not
a thumb
an original
tap.
idea to him.
That's probably
a science
not
fiction idea.
It is, but like he really implemented it in Metal Gear Solid 4 and became a very important part.
Did that too.
Yeah, but that came out after.
I don't think it did.
It did. Psychopaths came out in 2011, I think.
Right, so that's before 4.
4 came out in 2008.
Oh right, yeah, I just said that. All right.
Yeah.
So that's 2. Right, that's 2 covered.
Yeah.
Like, now I just want to give my rookie coverage of 3 because 3
is the best game ever.
Right. So exactly that. Me having never played personally Metal Gear anything except for mobile ops, which sucked. I know pretty much. I not every story beat in Metal Gear Solid 3, but most of them, and that's because. It will go down forever in history as one of the best video games ever made. Just definitively. If there's a pantheon of video game classics, it is easily top 10, probably top 5. Like, people will tell you that, like, Pac-Man should probably be number 1 or Tetris, which is cool. I understand that. That's like paying homage.
It's for the history of it.
That's, yeah. But in terms of like what really pushed the genre forward as a storytelling vehicle and as well as an entertainment device, Metal Gear Solid 3 is without a doubt one of the greatest games ever put together.
Brian, if you could switch over to this, I have
written don't jump don't switch over to this because that's jumping way too far into one of the ideas that in play Metal Gear Solid 3. Because Metal Gear Solid, like again, I want to clarify, I have not personally played this game, but.
We can make that happen.
We will. But I've written literature about this game I've never played because it's had such a prolific impact on the way that other people make games, the way that people play games, the things that people expect out of games, the way that games are structured. Because Hideo Kojima has set such a fucking high watermark for the way that you should be a game creator that people look to this still fucking a decade, 11 years down the line, they still draw inspiration from it. Metal Gear Solid 3 brings you, for the first time, into the shoes of Big Boss, who is, up until that point, has been the antagonist.
Yeah.
So this is kind of an origin story for the series, and an origin story for Big Boss, and then
which is very good for Kojima because it alleviates him of like sequel baggage.
Exactly. He doesn't have to hold up to anything he's already established because this is all new territory for him to tread. Like, because now he's doing prequel. And he does it to the nines. Some of the most iconic things you can think about in video games come from Metal Gear Solid 3.
Yeah.
Like the varied environments, the varied encounters that you have, the way that you can interact with parts of the game in certain ways that it will change up the way that the game turns out later. There are actions so that you can take. There is the layers to Metal Gear Solid 3 are incredible. And so what Brian has on screen now, I think you should switch to this because this is one of the most iconic sequences in video games to date. And this is the fight with
the end.
Yes. This elderly sniper who you actually encounter earlier in the game.
Yeah.
And so they set it up. It's like a movie. They fucking plant the bait.
But also on the layers of depth, it is possible to kill the end in the game, like prior to
by just waiting him out.
No. That's one way.
Oh, sorry. The way you can determine the way the game plays out.
Yeah, no. So there's a certain point where you are kind of sneaking around, and the end gets pulled out, and you're supposed to be sitting there sneakily and listening to what's happening. But if you shoot the right thing and blow something up, the end will die because he's a very old man in a wheelchair at that point, and he just gets blown up. And then when this boss point comes into, nothing happens. So essentially, this is probably was one of the most ambitious boss battle sequences that had ever been made up until this point. This is a real sniper duel.
It's a long, dragged-out sniper duel between you, the protagonist, with all your fucking equipment, and an old man in a ghillie suit.
Yeah, who's photosynthetic and has a spotting sparrow.
Is that where Quiet gets it from?
Yes.
Okay.
Literally.
We'll get to that. But so, like, just to break down the levels of that. So, yeah, you can avoid this fight altogether by killing the end earlier on. You can fight him honestly, like the person in this video was doing.
in a very different ways. You can fight him on a sniper battle. You can track him down with different these thermal glasses that this man is using right now.
And depending on the armor that you wear, you might have a better chance of doing stuff.
Yeah, you can listen for him with your directional microphone to hear heartbeats or hear his bird talking. You could use the night vision goggles to see if he's in the distance, or you could just like flat out search for him. It's very difficult because he's in a ghillie suit and it's a jungle, but you can do it. There are so many different ways to fight this boss.
But it is so tense because he's a sniper and he like has his sights on you most of the time.
Yeah,
and you feel the tension of like being about to get gunned down.
Yeah, and it's
another way that you can kill him is just by not turning off the system, right? Unless
you
like
can,
letting it idle.
if you wait a week, if 1 week in real time happens between the time that you initiate the boss battle and the time that you go back to playing it, he will just die. He will just die of old age
in the jungle.
Yeah, and initially Kojima wanted this to literally take a week, like not like just baseline.
Right.
Like oftentimes Kojima has these crazy wild ideas, and there's people presumably at Konami who are just like, "Hey, Kojima, that's too crazy."
Yeah.
Nah,
you can't have players take a week to fight one boss battle. People have jobs today, and he's like, "Their jobs are to play my games."
And it was fantastic. And then immediately afterwards, probably one of the most famous, strangely famous sequences in video game history is the what is it? The ladder climb. The ladder climbing sequence.
The ladder climb set up a theme and a trope that I don't know if it was the first instance, but it was probably canonically one of the most important ones. It set up this idea of cooldown time for players after they have such a tense encounter as they did with the end.
Yeah.
So what you're seeing on screen right now is a video of the ladder climb, which takes a real life 3 minutes?
It's about 3 minutes. Brian, if you could do me a favor, make sure that the volume on the YouTube video is on like
because it also plays the entire theme for the game, or is it a specific post-end theme?
No, it is. It's
the game's theme,
it's like a soft-spoken a cappella version of the theme. Which, so what also makes this game the best game ever is that after Hideo Kojima kind of getting all this backlash from,
we can't hear the YouTube video, right?
We can't hear it, but it might be up on the record. So I'm just worried about that. Okay, but as I was saying, while it was like Metal Gear Solid 2 was like almost a big FU to the fans and just kind of like really subverting everybody's expectations, like super duper postmodernism. Metal Gear Solid 3 was like straight faced action, high octane action. Like this is a faithful homage to kind of 70s action movies, and it starts off with a James Bond style intro sequence
with the invisibility shit.
No, with the snakes, the snake eater intro sequence, and there's like bones of snakes crawling everywhere as like the intro credits play, and it looks like the beginning of a James Bond movie. It has this song very reminiscent of a James Bond movie, and it's just wonderful. It's beautiful, and this is an a cappella version that you listen to as you go up this huge ladder, and you just sit there and you need the time.
Absorb it. Yeah, this is literally because they put you through one of the most tense encounters that you can have in the game, period. And immediately after, it rewards your victory with a moment of like quiet reflection.
Yeah,
where you can just. So what was that? How many was that? It wasn't 3 minutes. It was 2 minutes.
Yeah,
2 solid minutes of ladder climbing.
And you just sit there with your thumb
that's
up.
by design. Like he didn't have to do that.
He could have just like he could have done a cutscene that was a couple of minutes. He could have just had you walk through some things, but the ladder where you can only go
simple, you can only go up, and all you have to literally all you're doing as the player is just holding the stick forward, so it's like very low impact for you, and you're just listening to the music, and you're probably literally just like
quite literally cooling
like
down,
letting your because you like if you're a gamer of any kind and you've gone through a tense encounter, you know what it's like to have all of your fucking neurons firing and all of your adrenaline pumping. And so now you're just like literally given a moment to just like decompress, absorb what you just played through, kind of congratulate yourself a little bit for getting through it, and then now get yourself ready for the next sequence to come.
Yeah. And then the rest of the game is just also perfectly paced, similar to that. There's a spy sequence where you're inside a science lab and you have to play either a Soviet officer or a scientist, and you have to switch between them to get to different places. That's relatively tense. The game ends in like the most high octane action sequence. You're on the side of a motorcycle just shooting all these other people chasing you in motorcycles and tanks, and just like this music blaring, and it's just the coolest thing ever. And then these bosses are super interesting. The game starts, one of the early bosses, and you play against Ocelot for the first time. It's like a duel. You're across a gorge from each other, and he has his revolver, and you have
his name is Revolver Ocelot.
Yeah, you have your little pistol, and you guys are literally like ducking and weaving between trees. And then the game ends on probably what is one of the most beautiful moments in gaming history, which is the snake versus the boss fight sequence.
So I think was another thing that we need to touch on, because this is another iconic moment in gaming that set up a trope for other game makers to follow. There's a sequence where you have a boss fight with the boss, who is this woman who is Big Boss's, or your name is not Big Boss yet.
You're not Big Boss at this point.
What's his name now?
Naked Snake.
Naked Snake, right? Yeah. So were you Naked Snake? You have a relationship with this woman. She is the one who is in command of you. She is someone you love, but then she defected. She betrayed the U.S. And then you only find out like after you've killed her that actually no, she was like a triple agent, and so you actually just murdered your mentor.
Yeah, and she doesn't tell you that, and
until she's dead.
Yeah, no, she doesn't even tell you when she's dead. Somebody else tells you after she dies.
Even worse. But this sequence happens, right? You're seeing on screen. You're in this white field of flowers after the boss fight, and the game will literally not continue until you...
Actually, it has a timer on it.
Does it?
Yeah, it has I believe it's either a 7-minute or a 10-minute timer, because that whole area is going to
get... It's a hidden timer.
No, they tell you about it, because they say, like, really? Bombs are coming. Like,
there's no actual timer on the screen.
No, there's no timer on screen. But
yeah, so it just tells you that.
Yeah. But, like, if you play long enough, like, you'll just get bombed, and it'll just be game over.
Yeah, but so this is, like, the boss fight with the boss, but at the end of this... Can you skip to the end of it?
Yeah. And...
Because it's like, this is like, I feel like this is like the important moment, because this is one of those moments that is fourth wall breaking, not intentionally. Well, maybe, well, I guess intentionally, but not overtly, because this is literally forcing the player to make the decision, to be involved in the narrative.
Yeah, this, and I very specifically remember how powerful this was for me as well. At the end, you don't like kill her, and it gets like a little end sequence.
The game will not continue until you, the player, pull the trigger and kill her.
And it's beautiful. It's fantastic. It's probably one of the best moments in video gaming.
But history very much involves you in the narrative. It makes you part of the story.
Yeah, and it's a big thing for Kojima. Kojima knows what it means to play a video game. Kojima knows what it means to be an interactive narrative form.
And then, like, I thought all the flowers turned red, right?
They should at some point. Now that the sequence is running, it'll turn red. But, you know, it's beautiful. There we go.
Yeah, it's so cinematic, too. Yeah. It's so beautiful.
And the worst part of it is, like, the game kind of, like, while it gave you exactly what you wanted throughout the whole game.
But it's also like, you did this.
Yeah, in the end, it kind of pulls it out from under you, because it's like, the end of the game, quite literally the last action you take as a player character, is this solemn, sad, almost, like, regrettable action. Like,
you kind of don't want to...
and the game forces you to do it. It's not a cinematic sequence that happens
where
when you pull
it takes
the trigger.
Where it takes the onus off you. You know, like, this is like, you did this. This is your complicit in this narrative.
Yeah,
which is so great for immersion in games, and it makes the player so much more connected to the property. It is so good. It's like the same general reason why you kind of don't want to kill the Colossi in the Shadow of the Colossus,
exactly,
and stuff like that. Like,
you feel bad for them.
Yeah. Because you're like, this is not like what I signed up for. This is making me think.
They're screaming in too much pain, and that makes me a little uncomfortable.
And games like Spec Ops: The Line have taken the exact same concept and worked with it. But I think Kojima is the first major, popular, mainstream game maker to do it.
Yeah, and I would say he's probably the one that brought these kind of... deliberately bringing in the player character into the narrative like he was the first person to really kind of do that.
Yeah.
People started doing that afterwards. Like Spec Ops: Live came out in 2011, I think. And
yeah.
What was the other one that you mentioned? Shadow of the Colossus.
Shadow of the Colossus.
Shadow of the Colossus came out
like 2006. That's an old game.
Yeah, I'm not.
No, that might have been 2004.
Yeah. Well, it depends. What year? What year did Metal Gear Solid 3 come out? Was it 2006?
Metal Gear Solid 3 came out in 2008. 2004. Sorry, 2004.
Yeah. So I think Shadow of the Colossus came out in 2006.
Let me check that.
But either way, it's very monumentally influential to video games the way that they are.
So one of my favorite games is Shadow of the Colossus, but like
I don't really want to get too touch.
2005.
I don't really want to touch too much on the other games in the series. Metal Gear Solid 4 is meh.
I think it's important to say that too, though, because so Hideo Kojima was on this amazing hot streak and made probably 3, if not 4, of the most iconic games in gamedom. Right, Metal Gear 1 certainly
after 3,
and then Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, and 3 were all amazing, and 3 pinnacle achievement. But then 4 was like a real big letdown for a lot of fans. People thought that it was just kind of like Metal Gear Solid the movie.
Yeah, and I had recently watched a video that was
72 hours of cutscenes.
Yeah, I remember the longest cutscene in that game, the longest period between gameplay sequences of constant things happening on the screen, 27 minutes.
27 minutes.
There's
a 27 minutes and watch a cutscene.
Yeah.
That's an entire episode of television.
Yeah, it is.
Or syndicated sitcom TV.
Yeah, and Metal Gear Solid 4, I watched this video recently, this YouTuber that put like 3.5 hour, very well edited, very well made video about why Metal Gear Solid 4 was a mistake. I have a lot of mixed feelings about Metal Gear Solid 4, and I've only really touched it once, maybe twice. And I did not like it in the end.
Yeah.
I don't
People really didn't like it. Like, I feel like Kojima kind of dropped the ball on it.
Yeah. And really...
that feeling kind of extended to not Phantom Pain. What was the other one?
Peace Walker?
No, the other 5.
Well, the other ones...
Just in terms of the mainstream titles. What came...
Ground Zeroes. No, Ground Zeroes I loved. I adored. I loved it more than Metal Gear Solid 5.
The fan base didn't really love it. In general, like it got meh reviews across the board.
Here's what I'll say. So the Phantom Pain, it was basically...
Phantom Pain was praised as a pinnacle achievement of gaming. Ground Zeroes was like...
I feel the opposite of it.
6.
Metal Gear Solid 5 was excellent. It was probably some of the best video game I've ever played. But overall, as a whole thing, it is undercooked, it is incomplete, and there's a lot of
story. Phantom Pain?
Yeah, there's a lot of story behind why the game is the way that it is.
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with the studio.
Yeah, but Ground Zeroes, on the other hand, Ground Zeroes is a perfect, complete product, and I feel that is the case.
As an outsider who's never played any of them and just reads how people react to the games, people didn't like Ground Zeroes.
They didn't like Ground Zeroes because it was literally an hour of gameplay for $40. But I played that game for 100 hours. I speed ran it.
Really?
Yeah, it's that there's so much depth on that island. Like the thing was that Ground Zeroes was supposed to be the promise of what's to come,
right?
And if it was, and if you look through Ground Zeroes, if you look through it and you go around and you see the different the different characters that have their different routines and what happens on the level outside of your interaction, which you can then kind of like either follow behind or throw a wrench in, whatever, just kind of these large clockwork maps, reminiscent probably of the Hitman titles. Hitman titles were like that a lot. They were kind of like clockworking cycles of society, whatever, that you can kind of insert yourself into for whatever purpose. It felt a lot like that in Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes, and everything about it felt perfect. I would say if you go back, it is probably the most perfect hour-long experience ever. The problem is that it was only an hour long. There were some add-ons and there were some tapes. The tapes, I've always defended the tapes from Metal Gear Solid 5 and Ground Zeroes. They are fantastic as audio pieces. Very interesting. Very graphic in what they depict. It's some horrible fucked up shit that happens in them. But they're very well produced. They tell a very compelling and horrifying story.
But then people do say that Phantom Pain was like pinnacle game making. Like it was a phenomenal open world game. It didn't necessarily deliver on all the narrative points that people wanted it to.
Gameplay wise,
but gameplay, it's like
perfect,
it's a perfect game.
There was so much diversity,
which kind of adds
gameplay
to Kojima's like game making ethos.
Yeah,
that games are entertainment.
Yeah, which is when he made a open world, this is the first time Kojima ever worked at an open world game.
Right.
He knew what it meant to make an open world game. To have an open world game, you need to give a player a toolbox.
Right.
You give them a toolbox and you give them a sandbox, and then you tell them go, and then they can go and they make their own fun. And he gave you all the different types of tools you could ever want, and you can make the best out of it. You got a horse, you got a dog, you got a little mecha you can run on, you got helicopters you can call,
balloon people out of places.
Yeah,
you could hella drop shit in.
Yeah, you can
slide around in cardboard boxes on the scene.
Yo, man, look, I always tell anybody who plays Metal Gear Solid 5, I always try to tell them, always have your cardboard box on you. The cardboard box is probably the most versatile singular gameplay item in that game.
Really?
For real. I have done so much stuff with a cardboard box. It is insanely fun. Like, they just like a quick example of what the cardboard box could do. So it's the whole game has had this thing where Snake hides in a cardboard box and it works. So you get different types of cardboard boxes in this game. You get the normal cardboard box, it's just a box, you hide in the box. You can set the box down, you can jump out of the box and leave the box there, you can slide down hills on the box.
Yeah.
You can use that slide down hills to like hit people and knock them out on the box. You can sit in the box, wait till they come out, and then pop out of the box and punch them in the face or shoot them in the face or something.
Do we have box stuff here going on?
Yeah, and then they also have these boxes
you can attach posters to your box?
Yeah, you can attach a soldier poster, so they see the poster, and this is like, oh, it's just a guy, and then they just salute, and then they continue on their day. Or it's like a sexy girl, and then they come close to the box, it's like, oh, who's this sexy girl here in the desert of Afghanistan, you know?
In the box.
Yeah, and then they come up to it, and then they're like, what the hell? And then you beat them up, because they're distracted.
By the sexy box girl.
Yeah, and it's yeah, there we go, that's the sexy box girl on the side right there. And yeah, so you can literally have your sexy girl on the side, and then they get distracted and they come over there, and you can do whatever.
The box still has like packing tape peel on the side. Like,
I know, there's so much detail to it. And then there's the whole base building where you literally make your own military.
But you don't like build your base though.
You can you build the different nodes at different times.
Right.
Yeah, but you just kind of expand it. See, well, I don't know, is this the girl or is this something different? But they just come up and they're just like enamored. It's like, oh, what's this box? What is that? Oh, it's a cute anime girl? Yeah. Okay. But yeah, we're pulling on a bit more. We're getting a bit late. Yeah. Is there anything else we want to talk on? Just kind of like...
So I just want to so we've talked about Metal Gear Solid. We talked about the authorship of Hideo Kojima and why that series cemented him as a video game making god. I wish we should have talked less about that. Because I just wanted to touch briefly on so he's no longer with Konami.
No, he's not.
He had a very public split from that company, and people don't really know why. Still, Konami just seemed to just cut him from their fucking good graces. He was in line to make the new Silent Hill game.
Yes,
and it was going to be Silent Hills. We've talked about PT on this channel before, so we're not going to go too much into that. But he made PT the playable teaser for Silent Hills, and shortly after that, he was basically blacklisted from Konami, and they literally removed that game from the PlayStation Store.
Yeah, you cannot get that game anymore. The only way you can play it is on a console that still has it.
Yeah, but one of the big things about the Silent Hills trailer was that it was Norman Reedus doing the character capture, the mocap.
And then he was also working with Guillermo del Toro. And then after everything...
It promised to be an amazing game.
Yeah, after everything was canceled, you found out that Junji Ito was also working on it as well, who is...
that explains a lot.
Yeah, who is probably one of the best living horror manga artists.
Probably the best living.
Yeah, the best living. I admire so much of his work. He's fantastic.
So much. He's so good. He legitimately creeps me out, and it takes a lot for me to get creeped out by like art.
Yeah, and he was going to be working on Silent Hill, and Silent Hill is also one of my favorite franchises, like a whole concept.
Right.
But the way that they try to
we've discussed all that before, so let's assume people know that. So, but anyway, that's not the important part. So he, back in 2015...
Yeah. Brian, if you could pull up
his personal production company, Kojima...
He made a new one because his was under Konami and then got dissolved.
Right, so he made Kojima Productions in 2015 after this split from Konami, and almost immediately thereafter announced this game that he was planning with Guillermo del Toro and Norman Reedus called Death Stranding.
Yeah.
And what you're seeing right now on screen is, I think, probably the first E3 trailer that they put out.
No, this is the second one.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, this is the one. The Guillermo del Toro is going to pop up, and Mad Mikkelsen's is towards the back. It's towards the end of it.
Oh,
there we go.
yeah.
There's Guillermo right there.
Okay, but apparently, though, Guillermo only did this motion cap for the trailer. He's not going to be in the actual game.
Yeah, no, he's not going to be working on the game. They probably got some other person playing his mocap, but it's his facial features and voice probably. But just different mocap artists. You can't. This man is winning Oscars out there. We can't ask him to sit and make a video game for too long.
So it promises to be.
Yeah, and him and Hideo Kojima are like best buds.
Yeah, like
they're like the bestest friends ever. Like Guillermo del Toro has literally said, "I will do anything Kojima tells me to do."
Right.
Like
and
whatever
so that's part of what we were talking about at the beginning, is that Kojima's clout has grown to insane levels just off the back of his Metal Gear Solid franchise. He's such a talented game maker that he's made these connections with Mads Mikkelsen, with Guillermo del Toro, with Norman Reedus.
Yeah.
And now all these superpower storytellers are coming together to make this artistic piece of a video game called Death Stranding. And I guess what we want to leave it on is that Kojima and Norman Reedus are scheduled to have a talk and discussion about Death Stranding in a couple of weeks at the Tribeca Film Festival. It might not even be. It might be next week. I'm not sure.
We should find out and try to figure out.
We're gonna try and get in there and see what that is like, because holy shit, does this game look cool?
Yes.
Even if it's just a fucking 4-hour movie, it would be cool.
Yeah. The last thing that I remember seeing was him getting attacked by a weird oil monster lion that came out of nowhere when a guy took off his mask, and which then kind of just cements the whole weird skull mask things that everybody it's just a thing.
And they all carry babies, because I guess there's some because the rain resets time, and so you might get converted back into like a baby, so therefore you need to carry a baby. It's weird. It's weird, but I want to know more.
Yeah,
this will be my first Kojima game that I play.
I'm so excited. I'm probably going to get a PlayStation console for this game. Like this game and Cyberpunk 2077. I'm so excited for that game.
We're going to review that game. We're probably going to live stream that game.
That game was like made for me. Like,
yeah, we would discuss it a little bit. We should discuss that game more in the future.
I'm excited. It's made by CD Projekt Red, the people who made the Witcher series.
I know.
Excellent game makers.
Fantastic game makers. But we did watch that trailer on the podcast before, and I wasn't sold.
You weren't sold?
We'll see. I'll like if one of us PlayStation boys will get it, and we'll split it around. Yeah. But we'll see.
But yeah, either way, we're
definitely over our time. We could sit here and wax poetic about Hideo Kojima's gamesmanship.
Yeah, I love it, man. This frame photo here was on my wall. That's a real frame
photo. We didn't do this bit for the podcast. He just owns this.
Yeah, that was just on my wall. I just pulled it off.
Yeah. So and Leo's love of Kojima has infected my life to the point where I can now talk a lot about it.
And it's excellent. I love. He's one of the great artists of our generation.
He's someone who drives the industry forward, and you can have nothing but respect for that.
Yeah. He is a forward-thinking man.
Yeah.
And I would say,
and he works fucking hard.
If I was one of the things I was very interested in, like as somebody who's like who's building our production, I was watching an interview with him lately. In his new studio, they have the whole motion capture system for him, like for their games in a room. It's just like it's a room of like it's like I think it's like maybe like 16 poles with like 4 DSLRs each, and then they all take a photo at the same time, and then that becomes a 3D model. But they just have that in their production house, like in their offices, like it's there, so they don't have to go out to a different site for anything. They bring somebody in, sit down there, click. All right, cool, you're in the video game now.
Yeah, that's perfect.
And I love making your own setups to use internally.
He's great because he created his own.
Also, one of the great tragedies of the fallout of Metal Gear Solid 5 was the Fox engine. So Metal Gear Solid 5 was made on this proprietary engine that Kojima had spent a good number of years building, called the Fox engine, which was particularly made so that the technical aspects of world creation can be like kind of lowered, so that you can kind of just throw an artist in there and just start messing around with some fiddles here and there, and then make land. Like
and then Konami got to keep that.
Yeah, and I think the only thing they've used it so far is a fucking soccer game. Like this is probably one of like the greatest tool sets for game making ever crafted. Like it was so simple, and the shading was so well. There was so much depth within that engine that made it easily accessible for artists as opposed to like software engineers or like level design or level engineers, and it's just not getting used. And now Kojima had to like take a part of his time to remake a whole different one for his new company.
But you know what? He's glad to do it because he's a goddamn hard worker.
Yeah, and you know. And once he has it made once, it's just like, all right, cool. Here, just you over there that's working on it. You're working on a project. Take an engine. Just make video games. I've made it easy for you. Come on, just make video games, please.
Yo.
And I'm hoping that's what he's wrapping up for with his new production studio. He'll make his like one game every couple of years, but then he'll just be like, all right, you've been working with me for a while. Here, make a game.
Yeah.
You make a game.
Well, hopefully we'll get to see more of it in the coming future.
Yeah. And there's supposed to be an E3 this year, or Death Stranding's supposed to be E3 this year, so I'm excited.
We'll see.
We'll see. I don't know. But
we should try and get press passes.
Yeah, that'd be excellent.
Going to be the podcast.
But thank you for listening to us this evening.
Yeah,
rant and rave about mainly Metal Gear Solid, but Kojima the man.
Well, Kojima, yeah, honestly, Kojima is a bastion of video game making. He's an icon in our genre, in our industry now, and I don't know. I'm excited to see where he's going to go, even having never actually played his games. I'm excited to make Death Stranding my first game of Kojima's that I actually put hands on.
I'm excited that he's at this age and doesn't want to quit. Like, he's in his 50s and just like, I'm not stopping anytime soon. Like,
and hopefully we'll get to go to that Tribeca thing.
We will see. You know, maybe one of these podcasts might get canceled because it's on a Tuesday.
Yeah, we'll see.
You never know.
Anyway. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Thank you for bearing with us as we discuss one of the nerdier niches of video game making and the iconography of a single game maker.
And I've had a lot of fun. We can both go on for more hours, but to cut it short, I've been Leo.
I've been Vin.
And thank you for watching another episode of the Outside of Circle podcast.
Love y'all. See y'all later.